Welcome back to episode 185 of the Empowered Educator Show. I'm your host, Dr. Mel. Can you believe it? 185 episodes. Today, I'm going to be digging into a topic that can either feel overwhelming or empowering if you know how to use it. Data. Specifically, those beginning of the year benchmark assessments that land on your desk every fall. You know the ones: reading, math, sometimes even writing or science. Here at North County Christian School, we do a Bible assessment also. But here's the thing, data doesn't make decisions, you do. And the way you interpret, prioritize, and communicate that data sets the tone for instructional growth for the rest of the year. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to move from assessment numbers to action steps that actually impact kids. So let's get started. Hi, friend. Are you ready to move into a leadership position? Do you have interests and ambitions that you want to pursue, but feel like you don't know how to take that next step? Maybe you want to start your own coaching or consulting agency. I'm Mel, and I help educators define their career path through correct mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for your career transition. I will show you how to level up your leadership skills, share your expertise in a new way, create impact on a larger scale, and put your leadership in motion. As an educator for over 20 years, I started to feel underused and like I had more to give. I knew when the time had come for me to leave the classroom and affect change on a larger level. Now, I'm ready to help you determine where your talents and skills mesh with your passions and interests. Put your leadership in motion and move into that next phase of your educational career journey. Let me help you define your career path by having the right mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for that next leadership position. So power up and put your leadership in motion. Why does beginning of the year data matter so much? Well, it helps you establish that baseline for growth throughout the year. You need to know where your students are so you can plan your instruction, so you can plan for RTI, and so you know how to close those gaps. Where specifically are those gaps so you can close those? We've all heard about the summer slide, and it can be a real thing when your kids have gone home for the summer and they're just not exposed to the same things over and over. Maybe they had mastery, maybe they were close to mastery, maybe they were far away from mastery when they left you last year. And when they come back in, there are a few things they maybe have forgotten. And so there's a little bit of summer slide. And they're transitioning from one grade to the next. And in order for your teachers to be effective, you have to know as a teacher where your students are going to start. It allows leaders to set realistic growth targets that are aligned to the standards. You know where those gaps are. So now you can set a realistic growth goal or target so you can hit that along the way. And it's going to prevent you from flying blind. It's going to give your teachers that clarity that they need about their students, about their skills, their abilities, their knowledge, and it's going to give them some direction. We just took the Iowa and we're waiting on those results, and it's going to inform everything we do from here on out. And we're actually going to look at that data for the first time next week when we have our first teacher in-service day since coming back. I'm going to teach my teachers how to look at that data, how to break that data down, how to identify those gaps. And then we're going to create a plan for moving forward so we can close those gaps. And when you look at data and you really absorb it, internalize it, it helps you to avoid some of those common pitfalls that you see. Things like looking at those scores without context, when they just become numbers and there's no story behind them or behind those numbers. That story may be something like you piloted a new curriculum last year and you want to see if your teachers need more training on that curriculum or if they're not effectively using the curriculum. And I hate to say it, but sometimes you have an ineffective teacher. We would like to think that we never have that, but occasionally you're going to get an ineffective teacher. And you can have that context knowing where those students have landed on those first of the year benchmark assessments. And then the teacher for this year can plan accordingly. And sometimes when we look at data, we tend to focus only on the deficits. But we need to focus on the strengths too. There are some great teachers, some great things that are happening in our buildings. And we want to make sure that we celebrate those successes, that we identify those strengths so the teachers know, hey, I am doing what I am supposed to be doing. And my numbers are showing that. Another pitfall is overwhelming your staff with too much data at once. We're going to look at some of our data during our first teacher in service. I don't want to overwhelm them. So I want to make sure that we're only focusing on one area. And in my district, we're going to make that decision after we get that data and we look at it, myself and my building principal, so we know which area we're going to focus on this year, whether it be math or ELA. And the last pitfall I want to talk about is treating your benchmark assessments as labels or your data as labels rather than starting points. This is not where you're going to live. This is just where they're starting at the beginning of the year. Remember, data is fluid and it's going to change quickly. And if they had taken this test 2 weeks later, they probably would have done even better because they have learned some things in the last couple of weeks. So how do we analyze data effectively? First, you need to disaggregate by subgroup, grade, classroom, demographics, programs such as ELL, special education, or your gifted students. And look for patterns, look for strengths across grade levels, look for consistent week standards, and compare your data to prior years. Is this a trend or is this a one-time dip? If it's new curriculum, it's probably going to be a one-time dip. If it's one specific grade level, look at each teacher's data from year to year and see if there is a teacher issue that needs to be addressed. And then flag those urgent needs. Kids who are multiple grade levels behind or they're lacking those foundational skills, those need to be a priority. And that's a great segue into moving from data to your decisions, specifically your tiered supports. Use the data to inform your RTI, your MTSS groupings right away. Get started right away. One of the areas that we're going to focus on this year is instructional planning. Teaching our teachers how to backward plan around those skills gaps and around the standards. And then we're going to inform our professional development based on that. I'm going to provide some training on first, coming up next Friday, how to look at that data. And then I'll provide some training targeted to specific teacher needs revealed in that data. And it also helps with resource allocation, your small groups, your interventionists, your technology tools. What specifically do you need? So next Friday, when we have our first teacher in service, we call it TIS here in North County, I want to lead the data conversation by framing it around growth, not judgment. I am also new to the district, so it gives me a chance to model curiosity. I can play dumb, if you will. What's the story behind this instead of why are these scores so low? And there's no way that you can tackle everything at once. So set 2 to 3 focused priorities. And again, celebrate the strengths in the data first. When you're showing them the data for the first time, have a slideshow highlighting all of the great wins, the areas where you're doing super great, and then move to action on those gaps. So here's your action steps. Schedule a grade level data dig with your teachers. Choose one quick win to implement from the data. That might be phonological awareness deficits or decoding issues, or maybe some reading comprehension challenges. I know that informational text is a gap that I see quite often. You might see number sense deficiencies or an incomplete grasp of mathematical operations. Make sure that you communicate the results not just with teachers, but also with the parents of the students in a strength-based way. And then revisit that data in 6 to 8 weeks to check the progress and adjust, if that makes sense for your context. We assess with the Iowa 3 times a year. So we do it in the fall when we come back, then we do it in January, and then we do it again at the end of the year. Here's the bottom line. Beginning of the year benchmark data is not about predicting who will succeed or fail. It's about giving you a starting point to lead instruction with intention. When you analyze the data well, communicate it clearly, and then act on it strategically, you set your school up for real growth. Remember, data doesn't define your students. It directs your leadership. It directs the instruction in the classroom. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, guys. And if anything in this episode resonated with you, I would very much appreciate it if you would hop on over to whatever platform you listen on. Well, you're probably already there because you're listening right now. Since you're already here, would you drop me a rating and a review? I would really appreciate it. It helps the algorithm and bumps my show to the top so it can be found by more people. And it just kind of makes a girl feel good. Have a great rest of your week and weekend, and I will see you back here, same place next week. Bye-bye.